There are 4 elemental skills that we can imbue our core abilities with to create powerful synergies in Crimson Desert. Unlocking all of them will require completion of many Abyss Island puzzles, and there are a few extra tricks to get the most out of them once they are unlocked. All of that will be covered in this guide compilation, and as usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. The first elemental skill we can unlock is Lightning Surge, so let's cover that now. First, to unlock Lightning Surge, we will need to have completed the main quest line up to the end of Chapter 4. During the Spire of the Stars quest step, we'll make our way up said spire and traverse an abyss gate to the Sanctorum of Insight. However, during this first visit, something will happen and prevent us from actually proceeding through that location. At that point, there will just be one step left in the Chapter 4 main quest, so we might as well complete it. We can then fast travel back to the Sanctorum of Insight. This puzzle is basically complete, so we just need to travel past where the Abyss artifact is normally obtained, activate the Abyss Bridge, and proceed forward until we reach the Secret Garden. Upon our arrival at the Secret Garden, we'll need to complete a puzzle involving lasers. Force palm jumping up to the platform directly in front of us, we can use Axiom Force to control the active laser device and aim it up towards a different reflecting panel. This will allow the beam to fall on the left of the 2 laser receptacles. We'll then need to go grab a square panel battery and move it up towards its socket, which is located near the second laser device. Also, I'm doing all these puzzles without the aid of the Force Current skill. Force Current is a skill that can be used to channel Force Palm through the Axiom Force Tether and affect whatever the tether is attached to. In this case, it would be our square panel battery. Unlocking it requires having both Force Palm and Axiom Force at level 2, and then spending one more artifact to actually unlock Force Current. It is an investment, but will make completing these puzzles a lot easier. For example, with what we are doing right now, we could just position the square panel battery up against its socket, then channel Force Current through the tether to complete the connection. However, without it, you'll need to do something similar to what I do, where I glide over to the socket and climb on it, then do a manual Force Palm up close. In the end, all that matters is that we plug in that battery, activating the second laser device. We can then use Axiom Force to control the second laser and aim it at the appropriate reflecting panel to land the second laser on the right laser receptacle. With both receptacles activated, the way forward will open. We can then glide to ride up the air current, connect a separated conduit back together, and perform a crouched Force Palm on the final button to restore the Secret Garden Abyss. We can then collect our Abyss artifact and head south to reach the next Abyss island, the Vault of Vengeance. The first step we'll need to complete at the Vault of Vengeance is to move 2 activation cubes to their respective slots. This will deactivate the barrier barring our path. We can then shoot 2 targets on either side of the next door to open a lock and use Nature's Grasp to open the way forward. As far as I know, this next room does require level 1 of the Focused Shot skill to complete. Unlocking that skill will also require us to unlock Marksmanship level 2 and Focus level 2. Marksmanship is the second skill from the center in the blue tree, and Focus is the second skill from the center in the green tree. I'm not sure about the inputs for other setups, but on an Xbox controller, we need to hold the left trigger to aim, then click down both the right and left stick to enter Focus Shot mode. While still holding the left trigger down, we can then click right bumper to mark our targets. We'll need to mark all 4 targets around the top of the room, then release the left trigger to fire all shots off in quick succession. If done correctly, this will deactivate the defenses and allow us to grab the sword at the room center. That will bring us down to a laser obstacle course, and there is a way to get past all these lasers without taking damage, but I sort of made a mess of it. We'll then need to plug in a square panel battery, and again, force current will definitely make this easier to do. After that, we can take the teleporter to the surface where we must plug in a rectangle battery, again, force current. Once that's done, we can force palm the final device to restore the Vault of Vengeance Abyss. There's a gold chest up to the left beyond some foliage that we can burn away with the Blinding Flash skill. More importantly, the Abyss artifact for this island is located to the right. After grabbing it, we can then proceed to the next and final Abyss island, at least for our purposes, which is the Courtyard of Precision. The Courtyard of Precision is actually pretty quick to complete. All we need to do is activate a series of targets with our focused shot skill by shooting only the yellow targets. The first 3 groups of these targets can be found around the central pit. There are actually 4 groups of targets, but one of them has already been activated. Once all 4 of these initial target groups are active, the fan in the central pit should turn on. We can then ride this current up to get in the proper position for using focus shot on the last 2 groups of targets, which are aerial. I found that it's easier to do these focus shots by starting the focus aim process while going up, rather than waiting until we are already falling back down. Upon force palming the final device, we will restore the Abyss for the Courtyard of Precision and unlock the Lightning Surge skill. Before we move on to the next elemental skill, Frost Mantle, let's go ahead and grab our Abyss artifact here, then move on to the next Abyss island, Altar of Solitude, where we can unlock another fast travel point. Completing the puzzle at Altar of Solitude is beyond the scope of this guide and so won't be covered here. I can give a summary on how to complete the puzzle though. We will need to plug the square panel battery into the central socket, then remove it. We can then stand on one of the 2 rotating floors and activate them by making sure both sockets are plugged in and by having the Abyss core placed near its device. In the section beneath each of the 2 rotating doors is an additional battery, and we need to retrieve each and position them near the rotating doors so that they are brought topside when we move the square Abyss core away from its device. The ultimate goal is to have 4 batteries topside so that we can fully activate both rotating doors at once, and then have the Abyss Core item near its device. That will activate the final device for us to complete the puzzle. Now let's move on to the next two elemental skills, Frost Mantle and Flame Strike, which are both unlocked along the same string of Abyss Islands. So even if you just want Flame Strike, you will end up getting Frost Mantle along the way. I'm not sure if there is any prerequisite to unlocking Frost Mantle, at least in terms of main quest completion. However, we will need to defeat a difficult boss to access the Abyss puzzles that unlock it. Because of that, I recommend completing the main quest line up through the end of Chapter 4 before attempting to get it. Our first destination will be the Spire of Ringing Truth, which is located a fair distance north of Calphade up in the mountains. Once at the Spire, we will need to find a way down to the basement. This paradoxically requires us to first ascend to the top of it. We can do that however we see fit, whether by climbing or some combination of force palm jumping. Upon reaching the top of the spire, we'll need to break the wooden beam supporting the large bell. I would guess that a heavy attack or force palm could do the trick. However, I found a charge shot from the bow to be the most convenient, and I bet explosive arrows would also work. After the bell crashes into the basement, we can dive down ourselves and approach the Abyss Gate there to initiate a boss battle with Priscus the Ancient. This boss can be fairly frustrating, as he will spend most of the fight out of melee range, teleporting around and shooting projectiles at us. A decently upgraded bow can be used to chip away at his health, but ultimately be ready to deal maximum damage when he makes the mistake of coming within melee range. Defeating Priscus will get us several neat rewards. More importantly, at least for our purposes, it will grant us access to the first of 3 Abyss Islands that we must complete to unlock Mantle, Either Rest. The first thing to do at Either Rest is to make use of the fans and glide up to the central structure. We can then find a device around the top of the cage to use our Axiom Force on, and spin the outer gate until we are able to enter the cage, and then ride up another air current. In the next room, we can use Nature's Grasp on the stone structure with a circular opening to lift it up, then use Axiom Force on the device that gets revealed. Spinning this inner structure will reveal an opening for us to exit out of. We'll then need to glide up several smaller air currents using Axiom Force to grab an Abyss Core along the way. This core can be slotted into its receptacle at the top of this section to restore power to the final device for Either Rest. We can then jump up and glide along a horizontal current to reach that final device, activation of which will restore the Abyss in Either Rest. Also, a small tip, if we hold left trigger while climbing a wall, we can anchor ourselves to it and resist the pushing effect that normally happens when we use Force Palm against it. With the puzzle completed, we can claim our Abyss artifact and proceed to the next island, Frostbitten Paradise. Now, I'm not sure if we need to use this fan boat device to cross the final gap on the way to that island, but this is a good learning point for a skill that may be important in other puzzles called Nature's Snare. We unlock it by upgrading both Keen Senses to level 3 and Focus to level 2, then by spending one more Abyss artifact on the Nature's Snare skill. To use it, enter Focus and then look around in a circular motion to start generating a vortex. This vortex will activate the fan on the device, pushing us across the divide to our destination. Frostbitten Paradise is definitely the trickiest Abyss Island of the three, and it took me a while to figure out on my first time through. Also, I recommend saving at the start of every Abyss Island just in case things get bugged out. The main gimmick is to use these laser cubes to activate various receptacles in a particular order, all of which will culminate in the puzzle's completion. The first one is simple, just place the laser cube down so it hits the receptacle, opening the way forward. We can then stand on a button in the next room to open a way down below. This is where things start to get tricky. We'll start by placing the rectangle battery in its socket using force palm to plug it in. Next, we'll need to take the laser cube here and place it so it activates the other available receptacle. We then need to go partway across a gap and into the area with two new laser receptacles sitting side by side, along with another laser cube. The first thing we need to do is grab the laser cube here and place it on a conveyor belt facing the wall. Moving the nearby Abyss core over to its device will then activate the conveyor belt, sliding the laser cube into place to activate a third and otherwise inaccessible receptacle. This will open a new force field back into the previous room where the other laser cube is. We can then grab that laser cube and bring it back into the room with the conveyor belt. We'll then need to remove the Abyss core from its device to move the conveyor belt back in the other direction so we can retrieve the second laser cube. With both laser cubes, we can then activate both of the receptacles sitting side by side, disabling the force field that was blocking our path into a third room. A new rectangle battery is sitting in that room and we'll need to grab it, then perform several of the same steps we just performed, but this time in reverse. Our ultimate goal is to bring both the rectangle battery and one of the laser cubes back into the first room that we entered down here. With that done, we then need to position the laser cube in the first room so that it's back to activating that initial receptacle, the one closest to the gap. Crouching under the laser, we'll then grab the rectangle battery with axiom force and ride across the gap on the moving platform to reach the final room down here. There's a socket on the floor in that final room where we can plug in our rectangle battery, activating both a teleporter and the final device for this island. Upon activating the final device with a ground force palm, we will restore the Abyss for Frostbitten Paradise. We can then grab the Abyss artifact and proceed along a series of air currents to the final island, at least for our purposes of unlocking Frost Mantle, which is the Path of Trials. The Path of Trials is thankfully relatively quick to complete. I might not have done it in exactly the intended way, but it was quick. We'll first need to make our way up to a lone socket near the top of the island, and I did this mostly through force palm jumping and gliding. The square panel battery that needs to go into the socket is frozen and must be thawed before it can be inserted. I believe there is a pool of lava somewhere around here that can be utilized. For my part though, I just used one of the nearby lanterns to light an arrow on fire, then used charge shot with that flaming arrow on the square panel battery. That seemed to do the trick and melt away the ice. All that's left to do is to activate the final device to restore the abyss for the Path of Trials. I believe that this is what will unlock the Frost Mantle skill. Let's collect our final Abyss artifact here and move to the next Abyss Island where we can unlock a new fast travel point. The next island, Sanctorum of Darkness, is the first of several Abyss Islands that must be completed to unlock the Flame Strike skill. The first thing to do here is drop down below and grab a square panel battery through a gate with axiom force, then pull it free from its socket. Doing so will remove a force field above, allowing us to drop in and retrieve that battery. We can then plug it into a different socket off to the west of the fast travel point here. Plugging the battery into this new socket will activate the left laser device up top. We can then use axiom force to control each of these two devices and aim their lasers at a receptacle. Doing this will power on the final device of the puzzle. Activating that final device with Force Palm will restore the Abyss for Sanctorum of Darkness. We can then move up top to collect our Abyss artifact and move on to the next Abyss Island, Loop of Life. We'll need to activate 3 rotating loops to complete the puzzle at Loop of Life. To do that, we will need to ensure that the 2 sockets on each loop has a square panel battery plugged in. This is easy for the first loop as it only has 1 empty socket and the battery is right next to it. There is a second battery floating off to the northwest side of this first loop, and we need to move this battery as close to the nearby floating pillar as possible before moving over there ourselves. We can then plug that battery into a socket on the pillar to deactivate a nearby force field and remove a third battery contained within. We'll then need to pull that second battery free from its socket and move it, along with the third battery, up towards the second loop. Like the first loop, the second loop only has 1 empty socket. After plugging our second battery into that socket, we can move our third battery over towards the final loop. Again, this final loop only has 1 empty socket, and plugging in our third battery will start it up, along with the final device for this puzzle. We can then glide over to that final device, use the resist input to prevent being thrown back by Force Palm, and activate it to restore the Abyss for the Loop of Life. After grabbing the Abyss artifact reward, it's just a short trip to reach the final Abyss Island that we need to complete for the Flame Strike ability, the Tree of Slumber. I definitely recommend saving before starting the Tree of Slumber, as this puzzle is easy to mess up and can also bug out easily. That said, it's quick to complete if we do the exact steps required. We'll start by performing a sword stab on the east slot of the central wheel. This will act as a lever. Stab is performed by clicking right bumper and Y simultaneously on an Xbox controller, and I'm not sure about how to do it on other controller formats. After stabbing in, we will move to spin the wheel clockwise until the 3 pillars that are lowered light up with yellow rings of light. We'll then pull our sword, move 1 notch over to the left, stab in, and rotate the wheel counterclockwise until the 2 pillars that are raised up line up with the single other pillar that is raised. Finally, we will pull our sword, move 2 notches over to the right, stab in, and rotate the wheel clockwise until these last 3 pillars are lowered so that their rings light up yellow. Once all rings have been lit up or activated, the lava pool that is covering the final device will be lowered. That said, be careful, as trying to run up to it will result in contact with the lava and an instant game over. It's at this point that I finally unlocked the Force Current skill. This requires multiple Abyss artifacts to unlock, as we must get both the Force Palm and Axiom Force skills to level 2 before we can actually unlock Force Current. The investment is very much worth it though, and our first application of it will be right here. We can use Axiom Force on the final device and then channel our Force Palm through the connection to activate the device from a safe distance. Doing this will restore the Abyss for Tree of Slumber, automatically unlocking the Flame Strike ability. Before explaining how to use that skill and imbue offensive moves with the fire element, let's collect our final Abyss artifact here and move to the next Abyss Island, Skyloop Bridge, where we can unlock a fast travel point. Completing the puzzle at Skyloop Bridge is beyond the scope of this guide, and so won't be covered in full here, but I will say that the goal of the puzzle is to use Axiom Force to reassemble the broken archways in each of the loops, with one of them already being assembled and intact. Now let's cover how to unlock the final elemental skill, Stormveil. The prerequisite for unlocking Stormveil is no easy task. We'll need to complete the main quest line up through the end of Chapter 8. At that point, we will be given the Spire of Clockwork key. With it, we can make our way to the Spire of Clockwork, located northeast of the city in Demonis. There, we will insert the key into the front entrance to activate the Clockwork Spire puzzle. It's not too complicated. On the ground floor is a lever we must jump up and grab onto to activate. We then need to reach the top of the Spire of Clockwork, pulling one more lever and activating a lift along the way. You can engage directly with the platforming sections as intended, or make use of Force Palm Jump to hasten the ascent. Make sure to activate the lift that goes up to the very top of the spire, as it seems the Abyss Gate does not appear there until that lift reaches the top of the spire. The Abyss Gate leads to the Riddle Square Abyss Island, and this is the only puzzle we need to complete to unlock Stormveil. We can start by using Axiom Force to activate the central fan, and this also starts a timer. We need to glide up the air currents and then maneuver our way through a series of rings before the timer runs out. You can see the timer on each ring represented by a glowing yellow circle that drains over time. If you don't make it through all ring targets in the allotted time, you can return to that initial device and use Axiom Force on it to restart the timer. As you can see, I definitely didn't move through this race with a ton of grace, but it was still fast enough, and that's really all that matters. Upon successful completion of the race, we can use Force Palm on the final device to restore the Abyss for Riddle Square. Doing this will automatically unlock the Stormveil ability. Before explaining how to use that skill and imbue offensive moves with the air element, let's collect our final Abyss artifact here and move to the next Abyss Island, Origin of Thoughts, where we can unlock a fast travel point. Completing the puzzle at Origin of Thoughts is beyond the scope of this guide, and so won't be covered in full here, and I actually have not even attempted it myself, or else I would definitely give a summary of how to solve it here. In the last part of this guide, we'll cover how these elemental skills work and how to get the most out of them. We'll just be using the Flame Strike ability as an example, but the same basic principles apply to all 4 of the elemental skills and how they can be used with the Imbue Element skill. We unlocked it by completing the puzzle at Tree of Slumber, and can use it by pressing right trigger and the Y button simultaneously on an Xbox controller. If we want to imbue other core attacks with the Fire Element, however, we will need to invest some skill points into the Imbue Element skill. I'll demonstrate with the / skill, which is unlocked at the first level of Imbue Element. We can perform a normal / by pressing right trigger and right bumper simultaneously. To imbue it with fire, we'll need to first hold down right on the D-pad, then select the Fire Element from the menu that pops up. Next, we need to begin the windup of / by holding down the right trigger and right bumper, then press down on the left trigger to imbue it with our selected element, in this case fire. Finally, releasing all 3 buttons at once will perform the fire imbued attack to devastating effect. Also, I should mention that this consumes a significant amount of spirit to pull off. On top of this, if we have Abyss Gears that imbue fire slotted into our equipped armor, such as the Flames of Judgment and Volcanic Eruption gears, they will augment the flame imbued attacks, resulting in truly powerful synergies. If you have any questions on what was covered in this guide, you can reach out in the comments where I will do my best to help. I have guides on how to unlock the different elemental Imbue Abyss Gears over on my channel, so you can go there to find them. And if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day if you're here today, have a great Saturday, and a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching.